The cold bit through Gabriel Thornton's wool coat like teeth through paper. He shouldn't have taken this shortcut through the Montana backroads, but the highway had been closed due to the blizzard, and he needed to reach Billings by nightfall for a crucial meeting. His driver had suggested they wait it out, but Gabriel never waited. Waiting meant losing time, and time was the one thing he couldn't buy back. The black SUV crawled along the narrow road, snow piling up on the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. Pine trees lined both sides, their branches heavy with white powder, creating a tunnel of winter that seemed to stretch forever. Gabriel checked his watch. 4 in the afternoon, but the sky was already dimming to that peculiar gray that came before nightfall in a storm. "Sir, I really think we should turn back," his driver Martin said for the third time. Gabriel was about to agree when he saw something that made his heart stop. There, just off the road beneath a gnarled pine tree, was a small bundle. At first he thought it was trash, maybe a discarded blanket or bag. But something about the shape made his stomach turn. Something about the way it lay there, so still against the endless white. "Stop the car." "Sir?" "Stop the car now." Martin hit the brakes, and Gabriel was out before the vehicle fully stopped. His expensive leather shoes sank into the snow, the cold immediately seeping through to his skin. He ran toward the bundle, his breath coming in harsh clouds, his mind screaming that he was wrong, that it couldn't be what he thought it was. But it was. Baby. A tiny infant wrapped in a thin, threadbare cloth that was completely inadequate for the freezing temperature. The child wasn't moving. Its lips had a bluish tint and its skin was pale, almost translucent. Gabriel's hands shook as he picked up the bundle. The baby was so light, so impossibly small. He cradled it against his chest, trying to share his body heat. That's when he saw the note, pinned to the cloth with a rusted safety pin. The words were written in shaky handwriting on a torn piece of lined paper. "No one's child. I'm sorry." Rage and sorrow hit Gabriel in equal measure. How could anyone do this? How could someone leave a helpless infant to freeze in the middle of nowhere? He wanted to scream, to demand answers from the empty forest, but there was no time for that. Martin Hospital. No. Fastest route. His voice was steady despite the chaos inside him. The baby stirred slightly, letting out the faintest whimper. Gabriel's heart nearly stopped. It was alive. Barely but alive. He climbed back into the SUV, never loosening his grip on the child. "Call ahead. Tell them we're coming with a hypothermic infant. Tell them to be ready." Martin's face had gone white, but he nodded and grabbed his phone, already pulling up the GPS for the nearest hospital. Gabriel unwrapped his coat and opened his shirt, pressing the baby against his bare chest. He'd read somewhere that skin-to-skin contact could help with hypothermia. He wrapped his coat around them both, creating a cocoon of warmth. The baby was so cold, like holding a piece of ice. "Please," he whispered. "Please hold on." The drive to Mercy General Hospital took 27 minutes that felt like 27 hours. Gabriel kept checking to make sure the baby was still breathing, kept feeling for that faint heartbeat. He'd built a business empire worth billions, had negotiated deals that affected thousands of lives, but he'd never felt as helpless as he did in that moment. When they finally pulled up to the emergency entrance, a team was already waiting. Gabriel had barely stepped out when a nurse rushed forward. "We've got her," she said, reaching for the baby. "No." The word came out harsher than Gabriel intended. "I'm staying with her." The nurse, a beautiful African-American woman with kind eyes and her hair pulled back in a neat bun, didn't argue. "Then come with me. Quickly." They rushed through automatic doors into the bright, sterile environment of the ER. The warmth hit Gabriel like a wave, and he realized he was shivering violently. His clothes were soaked through with melted snow. "I'm Imani Washington, pediatric nurse," the woman said as they moved. "How long was she in the cold?" "I don't know. I found her maybe 30 minutes ago. She was just lying there in the snow." Imani's jaw tightened, but she kept her focus. They entered a treatment room where a doctor was already waiting. Gabriel finally, reluctantly, handed over the baby. He felt the loss of that small weight immediately. The medical team moved with practiced efficiency. Warming blankets, for lines, monitors beeping to life. Gabriel stood against the wall, watching, his wet clothes forgotten. He couldn't look away from that tiny face. "BP is low but stable," someone called out. "Temperature is 79 degrees, another voice added. "Start gradual rewarming protocol." The voices blended together, medical terminology he didn't understand, but he caught the important parts. The baby was alive. They were helping her. She had a chance. Imani glanced at him. "You should get dry clothes. We'll take care of her." "I'm not leaving." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. At least sit down before you collapse. Gabriel hadn't realized he was swaying. He sank into a chair, his legs suddenly weak. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him shaky and cold. But he kept his eyes on the baby. How long had she been out there? Who left her? And why? The note said no one's child, but that wasn't true. Not anymore. She's responding well, the doctor said after what felt like an eternity. Core temperature is rising. No signs of frostbite. She's lucky you found her when you did. Another hour. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Gabriel stood and walked to the bedside. The baby was wrapped in warming blankets, tiny wires and tubes attached to her, but her color was better. Her lips weren't blue anymore. What happens now? He asked. We keep her for observation, Imani said, adjusting one of the monitors. We'll need to contact social services. A baby found abandoned like this. There are protocols. I want to take care of her. Imani looked up, surprise clear in her warm brown eyes. Sir, that's not how this works. There's a process. Foster care investigations. I don't care about the process. That baby was left to die. Someone wrote that she was no one's child. Well, she's my child now. I'll hire the best lawyers, go through whatever process is needed, but I'm not letting her go into a system where she might be forgotten. She's not going to be no one's child ever again. The determination in his voice surprised even him. He'd made the decision in an instant, but it felt right. It felt necessary. Imani stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. It transformed her face from professionally kind to genuinely warm. I believe you mean that. I do. Good. Because that baby is going to need someone who fights for her. She paused. You know this won't be easy. Foster care, adoption, a man in your position. People will question your motives. Let them question. I know why I'm doing this. And why is that? Gabriel looked down at the sleeping infant. Because someone has to. Because she deserves better than being left in the snow. Because. He stopped, emotion tightening his throat. Because I was in foster care once. I know what it's like to feel like no one's child. I'm not letting that happen to her. Imani's expression softened even more. What's your name? Gabriel Thornton. Her eyes widened slightly. She'd clearly heard of him. Most people in Montana had. His real estate developments and tech investments had made him one of the wealthiest men in the state. Well, Mr. Thornton, if you're serious about this, you're going to need help. Babies require round-the-clock care, especially one who's been through trauma. Do you know anything about caring for an infant? No. But I'll learn. You'll need a nurse. Someone experienced. Are you volunteering? The question surprised them both. Imani blinked, then laughed softly. I have a job here. I'll pay you double whatever they're paying you. Triple. Name your price. Mr. Thornton. Gabriel. Please. Gabriel, she said, and he liked the way his name sounded in her voice. It's not about the money. It's about whether you're truly committed to this. A baby isn't a business deal. You can't just throw money at the problems and expect them to go away. I know that. I'm not asking you to make this easy. I'm asking you to help me do this right. She studied him again, those intelligent eyes seeing past his expensive suit and billionaire status to something deeper. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she nodded slowly. Okay, I'll help. But we do this properly. No cutting corners, no using your influence to skip steps. That baby deserves the best care and the best start in life. Agreed. A social worker arrived an hour later, a tired-looking woman named Patricia who clearly handled too many cases. She took Gabriel's statement, examined the note, and made several phone calls. Gabriel answered every question patiently, made his intentions clear, and didn't flinch when she warned him about the lengthy process ahead. You understand that emergency foster placement usually goes to licensed foster parents, Patricia said. I'll get licensed. Tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. It's not that simple. There's training, home visits, background checks. Then start the process. Today. I have resources. I can expedite things legally and ethically. Patricia sighed. I can see you're determined, Mr. Thornton. Let me make some calls. While Patricia stepped out, Imani approached Gabriel. You really meant all that? Every word. Most people would have just called 911 and kept driving. I'm not most people. He paused. And that's not a boast. It's just, I couldn't drive away. When I saw her lying there, something inside me knew. She's mine to protect now. She doesn't even have a name yet. Gabriel looked at the sleeping baby, so peaceful now, so different from the nearly frozen child he'd found. Hope. Her name is Hope. Imani smiled. That's perfect. The night wore on. Tests were run, paperwork was filed, calls were made. Gabriel refused to leave, pulling up a chair beside Hope's hospital crib. Imani stayed too, monitoring Hope's vitals, adjusting blankets, checking readouts. Around midnight, Patricia returned. I've spoken with my supervisor and a family court judge. Given the unusual circumstances and your substantial resources, we can arrange emergency foster placement with you while the full process moves forward. But you'll need round-the-clock care for the baby. She can't be alone. I've already arranged that, Gabriel said, glancing at Imani. Patricia followed his gaze. Nurse Washington, you're willing to take this on? Imani hesitated for only a second. Yes, I am. Then I'll need both of you to sign some papers. Mr. Thornton, a social worker will visit your home within 48 hours. You'll need to complete foster parent training within the next month. There will be regular check-ins. And Mr. Thornton, the goal is always reunification if a biological parent comes forward. No one who leaves a baby in the snow to freeze deserves to be called a parent, Gabriel said quietly. If someone comes forward, they'll have to go through me first. Patricia's expression softened. I understand your feelings, but we follow the law. However, abandonment of this nature, it will significantly impact any custody considerations. Just follow the process, Mr. Thornton. Do everything by the book. I will. Papers were signed. Arrangements were made. And 3 days later, when Hope was medically cleared to leave the hospital, Gabriel carried her out in his arms, Imani beside him, and drove to his mansion in the hills outside Billings. Have you ever found something you didn't know you were looking for? Something that changed everything? What would you have done if you found Hope in that snow? Drop a comment below and subscribe to see how this family's journey continues. Your support means everything. As they pulled up to the massive iron gates of his estate, Gabriel looked down at the sleeping baby and made a silent promise. Hope would never be cold again. She would never be alone again. She would never, ever be no one's child. She was his daughter now, and he was never letting her go. The mansion felt different with Hope in it. Gabriel had lived there for 5 years, ever since his real estate portfolio had really taken off, but it had always felt more like a showpiece than a home. 20,000 square feet of marble floors, vaulted ceilings, and rooms he never used. His interior designer had called it modern elegance. Gabriel had called it functional. Now, walking through the grand entrance with Hope in his arms and Imani beside him, all he could see were the dangers. Sharp corners on the Italian furniture. Stairs with no baby gates. Rooms that echoed with emptiness. This is going to need some work, Imani said, reading his thoughts. Whatever it takes. Make a list. She pulled out her phone and started typing. Baby-proofing supplies, a proper nursery, warmth. This place is beautiful, Gabriel, but it's cold. A baby needs warmth. He'd never noticed the coldness before. The temperature was controlled perfectly, but she was right. There was no warmth here. No life. Show me what to do. Over the next week, Gabriel learned more than he had in his entire business career. He learned that babies needed to eat every few hours, that they communicated through cries that all sounded the same at first but became distinct with practice. He learned about diaper changes and burping and the terrifying responsibility of keeping another human being alive. Imani was patient but firm. She didn't do things for him when he could learn to do them himself. She stood beside him during the first diaper change, coaching him through it while he fumbled with tiny snaps and tabs that seemed designed to confuse adult hands. You're thinking too hard, she said, amusement in her voice. It's just a diaper. It's a very small diaper on a very small person who won't stop wiggling. Hope kicked her tiny legs and Gabriel could have sworn she was laughing at him. But he got it done. And the second time was easier. By the end of the first week he could change a diaper in under a minute, a fact that filled him with ridiculous pride. The nursery came together quickly. Gabriel hired a contractor who worked around the clock to transform a cold guest room into something bright and warm. Imani picked out furniture in softwood tones, not the stark white Gabriel had initially suggested. She chose bedding with gentle patterns, a rocking chair positioned near the window, and curtains in a cheerful yellow that caught the morning light. Why yellow? Gabriel asked. Because it's happy. Because Hope deserves happy. He'd never thought about colors that way. In his world, everything was about impression, about power plays and strategic choices. But watching Imani arrange stuffed animals on a shelf, seeing her smile as she tested the mobile above the crib, he understood. This wasn't about impressing anyone. This was about creating a home for a child who had started life being thrown away. The social worker visit came on day 3. Patricia arrived with a colleague, both carrying clipboards and serious expressions. They toured the mansion, took notes, asked questions. Gabriel could see them trying to find fault, trying to determine if this was some eccentric billionaire's whim that would fade. He answered every question honestly. Yes, he had nannies standing by, but he was the primary caregiver. Yes, he had wealth, but he understood that money didn't replace presence. Yes, he'd been in foster care, and that's exactly why he knew how important stability was. Imani backed him up. She explained her role, her credentials, her commitment. She showed them Hope's medical records, the schedule they'd established, the routines they were building. Mr. Thornton, Patricia said finally, I have to admit I had doubts. Men like you usually hire people to handle this kind of thing. But I can see you're hands-on. The baby is thriving. You're following all our guidelines. This isn't a project for me, Gabriel said quietly. This is my daughter. Patricia made a note. We'll continue regular visits. You start your foster parent training next week. But so far you're exceeding expectations. After they left, Gabriel sank into the rocking chair, Hope sleeping in his arms. Imani sat on the floor beside him, her back against the wall. You were nervous, she observed. Terrified. What if they said no? What if they took her? They didn't. You're doing this, Gabriel. You're really doing this. He looked down at Hope. She'd gained weight in the past 3 days. Her cheeks had color now. She made little sounds in her sleep, tiny coos that melted something in his chest every time. I've closed billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. I've stood in front of shareholders and made presentations that determine the futures of thousands of employees. But nothing has ever scared me like the possibility of losing her. Imani reached up and squeezed his hand. The gesture was simple, but it sent warmth through him that had nothing to do with temperature. You won't lose her. I can see it in how you hold her, how you wake up before she cries because you've learned her patterns. You're her father in every way that matters. And you're? He paused. What was Imani to them? Nurse was too clinical. Employee was insulting. Friend felt inadequate. She stood gracefully, understanding his struggle. I'm here. That's enough for now. But it wasn't enough, not really. Gabriel was starting to realize that Imani had become essential. Not just for Hope's care, though she was brilliant at that, but for him. She steadied him when doubt crept in. She celebrated small victories like Hope's first real smile. She sat with him during the late-night feedings, talking softly about nothing and everything. His business partners had been calling constantly. The meeting he'd missed in Billings had been rescheduled twice. Deals were waiting. Decisions needed to be made. But Gabriel found himself delegating more, trusting his team to handle things that once he would have insisted on controlling personally. You're different, his CFO Thomas said during a video call. Thomas was a practical man in his 50s who'd been with Gabriel since the beginning. Softer. It's strange. I have a daughter now. Priorities shift. A daughter you've known for 2 weeks. A daughter who would have died if I hadn't found her. Time doesn't change that. Thomas sighed. I'm not criticizing, Gabriel. I'm just worried. You're risking your reputation, possibly your business relationships. People are talking. Some are saying this is a publicity stunt. Let them talk. And when they question your judgment in business because of this decision? Gabriel looked at Hope, sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside his desk. Then I'll prove them wrong. I've never failed at anything I've committed to, Thomas. I'm not starting now. After the call ended, Imani appeared with 2 cups of coffee. She'd started anticipating his needs, and he'd started noticing little things about her. The way she hummed while preparing bottles. The brightness in her eyes when Hope did something new. The competence and grace she brought to everything. Trouble? She asked, handing him a cup. Just people being people. Worrying about things that don't matter. Your business matters. My business will be fine. Hope matters more. Imani sat in the chair across from him, her green scrubs bright against the dark leather. She'd started keeping spare clothes at the mansion, practical outfits for baby care. Today she wore green with yellow accents, colors that made her skin glow. Can I ask you something personal? She said. Always. Why foster care? You mentioned you were in the system, but you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. Gabriel set down his coffee. He rarely talked about his childhood. It felt like a different life, a different person. But Imani had shared so much of herself over the past 2 weeks, sitting up with him during difficult nights, telling stories about her own childhood in Atlanta, about her mother who'd been a nurse, about the brother she'd lost to gang violence when she was 16. My mother was 17 when she had me. Single, no support system, struggling with addiction. She tried for a few years, but eventually I was taken away. I bounced around. Some homes were okay. Some were. He stopped, old memories surfacing. Some were not okay. I aged out of the system at 18 with nothing but a high school diploma and a chip on my shoulder. How did you go from that to this? Imani gestured at the opulent office. Spite mostly. Determination. I put myself through community college working 3 jobs, then transferred to a state school. I studied real estate and finance. I started small, buying properties nobody wanted and fixing them up. I was good at seeing potential where others saw ruin. Like with hope. He smiled. I didn't think of it that way, but yes. Like with hope. You could have just called someone that day. Could have stayed in your warm car. I couldn't. The moment I saw her lying there in the snow, it was like looking at myself. Abandoned. Unwanted. Left to freeze. I couldn't save myself back then, but I could save her. Imani's eyes were suspiciously bright. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It's just the truth. Truth can be beautiful. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to Hope's soft breathing. Gabriel found himself watching Imani, noticing things he'd been too busy to see before. The elegant line of her neck. The way she bit her bottom lip when she was thinking. The warmth that seemed to radiate from her. Can I ask you something now? He said. Fair is fair. Why did you agree to this? You had a good job at the hospital. Benefits, stability, a career path. And you gave it up to help a stranger with a baby. Imani looked at Hope, her expression tender. Because of her. Because I saw you in that ER, this powerful man shaking and wet and absolutely terrified, but refusing to leave her side. Because you didn't hesitate when you found her. You acted. And because. She paused. Because I know what it's like to watch someone die who didn't have to. Your brother. My brother. He was shot in a drive-by 3 weeks after his 16th birthday. He bled out on the street while people stood around with their phones, recording instead of helping. By the time the ambulance came, it was too late. I became a nurse because of him. Because I wanted to be someone who helped instead of watched. I'm sorry. Don't be. His death gave me purpose. And now, being here with you and Hope, I feel like I'm honoring that purpose. I'm helping a child who was left to die. I'm helping a man become a father. That means something. Gabriel wanted to say more, wanted to tell her how much her presence meant, how he looked forward to seeing her each morning, how the mansion felt like a home for the first time because she was in it. But the words felt too big too soon. Instead he said, thank you. For everything. She smiled. You're welcome. For everything. Hope stirred, making her hungry sounds. Imani stood immediately, moving to the bassinet. I've got her. You finish your work. But Gabriel stood too. We've got her. Together. Imani looked at him, something unspoken passing between them. Then she nodded. Together. They prepared the bottle side by side, their movements synchronized from 2 weeks of practice. Gabriel held Hope while Imani tested the temperature. Then Imani settled into the rocking chair, and Gabriel handed Hope over, watching as his daughter latched onto the bottle with enthusiasm. She's getting stronger, Imani said. Because of you. Because of us. You're doing the work, Gabriel. I'm just the guide. But she was more than that. So much more. And as Gabriel watched them together, Imani's dark skin glowing in the afternoon light, Hope content in her arms, he realized something that should have terrified him but instead felt completely right. He was falling for her. For Imani Washington, the pediatric nurse who had appeared in his life at the exact moment he needed her. The woman who was teaching him to be a father, who filled his cold mansion with warmth, who looked at him like he was more than just a billionaire. Was too soon. Too complicated. They were building something for Hope, and he couldn't risk that by confusing it with his own feelings. But the feelings were there, undeniable and growing stronger each day. Later that night, after Hope was asleep and Imani had retired to the guest suite Gabriel had converted into her private space, he stood in the nursery doorway watching his daughter sleep. The room was warm, filled with soft light from a night light shaped like a star. Hope was safe. She was loved. She was no longer no one's child. And Gabriel was no longer alone. He'd built an empire by himself, trusting no one, needing no one. But now he had Hope. And he had Imani. And for the first time in his adult life, the future looked like more than just the next deal, the next acquisition, the next success. It looked like a family. 3 months transformed everything. The mansion Gabriel had once seen as a showpiece became a home filled with life. Baby swings appeared in the living room. Soft blankets draped over leather couches. The sound of Hope's laughter echoed through halls that had once known only silence. Gabriel learned that success wasn't measured in stock prices or property values. It was measured in Hope's growing weight chart, in the way she tracked movement with her bright eyes, in the trust she showed when she reached for him. It was measured in milestones that would seem small to others but were monumental to him. The day Hope recognized his face and smiled specifically at him, Gabriel called a board meeting just to share the news. His executives had stared at him like he'd lost his mind, but he didn't care. His daughter had smiled at him. That was worth celebrating. Imani had become the center of their small universe. She moved through the mansion with easy confidence, transforming rooms as she went. The formal dining room became a play area. The library gained a corner filled with board books and soft toys. The kitchen, once the domain of Gabriel's rarely used private chef, became a place where bottles were prepared and baby food was tested. "You're changing my entire house," Gabriel observed one morning, watching Imani hang colorful pictures on the wall of what used to be his private study. "I'm making it appropriate for a baby," she corrected, stepping back to examine her work. The pictures showed animals and shapes in bright primary colors. Hope needs stimulation. She needs to see color and pattern. She needs an environment that encourages development. "I'm not complaining. I like what you're doing." She turned to look at him, surprise in her expression. "You do? This place was cold before. Empty. Now it feels like people actually live here. People do live here. 3 of them. 3. The word settled in his chest with warmth. They were 3 people living together, sharing space and time and the enormous responsibility of raising Hope. Somewhere along the way, without either of them explicitly acknowledging it, they'd become a unit. Gabriel's foster parent training had been intensive. Classes 3 times a week, covering everything from child development to trauma-informed care. He'd sat in rooms with couples and individuals, all there for different reasons, all learning the same basics. He'd been the oldest student by at least a decade and the only billionaire, but none of that had mattered. They were all just people trying to provide homes for children who needed them. The other students had been wary of him at first. A single man, wealthy, with no spouse, seeking to foster and adopt an infant? The whispers had been inevitable. But Gabriel had shown up for every class, asked thoughtful questions, shared his own story when appropriate and slowly won them over. Patricia, his social worker, had been impressed. "You're excelling in the program," she told him during one of her regular visits. "I've seen your assignments. You're taking this seriously. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might try to buy your way through it. Use your influence. But you're doing the work. That matters." Hope was awake during Patricia's visit, playing on a blanket spread on the living room floor. Imani sat beside her, encouraging her to reach for toys, praising every small movement. Patricia watched them. "You've created something special here. The 3 of you. Imani is essential," Gabriel said. "I couldn't do this without her." "Is it more than professional?" Patricia asked bluntly. "I need to know for the reports." Gabriel hesitated. What was his relationship with Imani? They lived together, co-parented Hope, shared meals and late-night conversations. They laughed together, worried together, celebrated together. But they'd never discussed what that meant. "She's Hope's nurse and my friend," he said carefully. "We work well together." Patricia made a note. "As long as the arrangement is stable and beneficial for Hope, that's what matters. But Gabriel, if things change, if feelings develop, you need to be honest about it. Complications can affect the adoption process." After Patricia left, Gabriel found Imani in the kitchen preparing lunch. Hope was in her bouncer seat, watching everything with wide eyes. What did Patricia want to know? Imani asked without looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. "Whether we're more than friends." The knife paused mid-cut. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That you're Hope's nurse and my friend." "Is that the truth?" Gabriel moved closer, leaning against the counter beside her. "What do you want it to be?" Imani set down the knife and turned to face him. Her eyes searched his, looking for something he hoped she would find. "I want it to be honest. Whatever we are, whatever we're becoming, it needs to be honest. For Hope's sake." "And for our sake?" "Yes. For our sake too." They stood there, the air between them charged with everything unspoken. Gabriel wanted to kiss her. Wanted to pull her close and admit that she'd become as important to him as breathing. But Hope made a sound, drawing their attention, reminding them both of the fragile trust they were building. "We should probably talk about this," Imani said softly. "We should. But not now. Not with everything still so new and uncertain." Gabriel nodded, understanding even as disappointment settled in his chest. She was right. They needed to establish Hope's security first. Everything else could wait. But that didn't stop him from thinking about Imani constantly. Didn't stop him from noticing the way she laughed, the competence in her hands, the kindness that colored everything she did. Didn't stop him from imagining a future where they were more than housemates co-parenting a child. Work had become secondary. Gabriel still managed his businesses, still made decisions and closed deals, but he did it remotely, fitting meetings around Hope's schedule instead of the other way around. His executives had adjusted, though some grumbled about his reduced availability. "You're risking everything you've built," his business partner, Richard, said during a tense video call. Richard handled the tech side of their investments and had been with Gabriel for 8 years. "I'm building something more important. A family with a woman who works for you and a baby you found in the snow?" "Gabriel, listen to yourself." "I am listening. And I hear someone who finally has his priorities straight." Richard's expression softened. "I'm worried about you. This isn't like you. You've always been focused, driven, single-minded. And I was lonely. I just didn't realize it until I found Hope. Until Imani came into my life. So it is about the nurse. It's about all of it. Hope, Imani, this life we're building. I was existing before Richard. Going through motions. Making money for the sake of making money. Now I have a reason. I have someone who depends on me, someone to come home to, someone to build a future for. And if it falls apart? If the state takes Hope? If Imani leaves? Then I'll have tried. I'll have fought for something that mattered. That's more than I could say 6 months ago." After the call, Gabriel went to find Imani and Hope. They were in the nursery, Imani reading a board book while Hope gummed a teething ring. The late afternoon sun streamed through the yellow curtains, painting everything in warm light. "Can I join you?" he asked from the doorway. Imani looked up and smiled. "Always." He sat on the floor beside them, and Hope immediately reached for him, babbling sounds that almost seemed like words. He picked her up and she grabbed his nose with surprising strength, making Imani laugh. "She's getting so strong," Imani said. "She's growing so fast. Sometimes I look at her and can't believe she's the same baby I found 3 months ago." "You saved her life." "We saved her life. You brought her back to health. You're teaching me how to be her father. You would have figured it out. Not as well. Not as quickly." He paused, hope settling against his chest. "I need to ask you something." Imani set down the book, giving him her full attention. "Okay. Are you happy here? I know this wasn't what you planned. You had a career at the hospital, a life of your own. Now you're here, day in and day out, taking care of Hope, dealing with me. Is this what you want?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked around the nursery at the walls she'd painted, the toys she'd chosen, the life they'd created together. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but certain. "I'm happier than I've been in years. Maybe ever. Working at the hospital was fulfilling, but it was also exhausting. I saw so much pain, so much loss. Here I get to see growth. I get to watch Hope thrive. I get to help you become the father you were meant to be. That's not a sacrifice, Gabriel. That's a gift. You could still have your own life. Go out, meet people, date. Is that what you want? For me to date?" The question caught him off guard. "No," he admitted. "But I don't want you to feel trapped either." Imani moved closer, her hand covering his where it rested on Hope's back. "I don't feel trapped. I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Then Hope yawned, breaking the spell, and they both laughed. "Someone's ready for a nap," Imani said. Gabriel stood carefully, carrying Hope to her crib. He laid her down gently, covering her with a soft blanket. Imani turned on the mobile above the crib, and they both stood there watching Hope's eyes grow heavy, watching her drift into sleep. "I have something for you," Gabriel said as they left the nursery, pulling the door partially closed. "Gabriel, you've already given me so much. This is different." He led her to his office and pulled out an envelope from his desk drawer. Inside were legal documents he'd had his lawyer prepare. "What is this?" Imani asked, taking the papers. "A contract. Officially making you Hope's co-guardian. If anything happens to me, you would have full custody. You'd be her mother in every legal way." Imani's hands trembled as she read through the documents. "Gabriel, this is huge. You are her mother. In every way that matters, you're raising her with me. She deserves the security of knowing you're not just an employee who could leave. Your family." Tears slid down Imani's cheeks. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Sign the papers. Make it official." "Yes. Of course yes." She signed where his lawyer had marked, her signature bold and certain. Gabriel signed as well, and just like that they became legal co-guardians. Partners in raising Hope. "Thank you," Imani whispered. "Thank you. For taking a chance on us. For making this house a home. For being the mother Hope needs." They stood close, the signed papers between them, everything changing and nothing changing all at once. Because the truth was, Imani had been Hope's mother for months. This just made it official. That night, after Hope was asleep and the house was quiet, Gabriel and Imani sat in the living room. Not working, not discussing schedules or doctor appointments. Just sitting together, comfortable in the silence. "Do you ever think about the person who left her?" Imani asked suddenly. "Every day." "Do you hate them?" Gabriel considered the question. "I did at first. I was so angry. How could anyone do that to a helpless baby? But now I feel pity. Whatever drove someone to leave Hope in the snow, it must have been desperate. Must have been tragic. I hope they found peace." "That's very generous. Or very selfish. Because if they hadn't left her, I never would have found her. You and I never would have met. This family wouldn't exist." Imani rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture so natural it felt like they'd been doing it for years instead of months. "Do you believe in fate?" "I didn't. But finding Hope exactly when I did, in a place I should never have been, taking a road I never take? That feels like more than coincidence. And us. Definitely fate." She lifted her head to look at him. "You sound very certain." "I am. You appeared in that ER exactly when Hope needed you. When I needed you. That's not random chance. What if I'd been on a different shift? What if another nurse had been assigned? Then I would have found you anyway. Somehow. Because this." He gestured between them, encompassing Hope sleeping upstairs, the home they'd built, the future spreading out before them. "This was always meant to happen." Imani smiled. "That's the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. It's just the truth." "I know. That's what makes it romantic." They sat together until the moon rose high and the night grew late. And when they finally went to their separate rooms, Gabriel lay awake thinking about fate and family and the woman who had become essential to his existence. In 3 months they'd built a home. In 3 more maybe they'd build something even more. 6 months after finding Hope in the snow, Gabriel stood in his office staring at a problem that couldn't be solved with money or influence. Hope had been fussy for 3 days. She wasn't eating well, wasn't sleeping well, and the doctor couldn't find anything medically wrong. "She's teething," Imani had said. "It's normal." But watching Hope cry, seeing her in discomfort and not being able to fix it, made Gabriel feel more helpless than he'd felt in years. He'd faced hostile takeovers and market crashes without flinching, but a 6-month-old's tears undid him completely. "Here," Imani said, appearing with a cold teething ring. "Try this." Gabriel took it and offered it to Hope. She grabbed it immediately, gnawing with concentration. The crying stopped, replaced by focused gumming sounds. "How did you know that would work?" "Experience. Babies are actually pretty straightforward once you learn their language." "Teach me." So Imani did. She taught him to read Hope's different cries. The hungry cry versus the tired cry versus the uncomfortable cry. She showed him how to soothe with gentle bouncing, how to create calming routines, how to be present even when he couldn't fix everything. "You can't solve every problem," Imani said one evening as they tag-teamed bedtime. "Sometimes you just have to be there while they work through it. That goes against everything in my nature." "I know. But that's what makes you a good father. You're willing to learn. Willing to adapt." Fatherhood had indeed required adaptation. Gabriel's entire life had been about control, about bending circumstances to his will through sheer determination and resources. But Hope couldn't be controlled. She operated on her own schedule, had her own needs, developed her own personality that was entirely separate from any plan he might have made. She was stubborn. That trait showed up early. When Hope decided she didn't want something, no amount of coaxing would change her mind. She turned her face away from food she didn't like. She kicked off blankets she found too warm. She made her preferences abundantly clear. "She's like you," Imani observed with amusement. "I'm not stubborn." "Gabriel, you once negotiated for 6 straight hours over a deal because you refused to accept anything less than exactly what you wanted. That's not stubborn. That's determined." "What's Hope being when she refuses to eat peas?" He couldn't help but smile. "Determined." "Exactly." But Hope also showed tenderness that Gabriel recognized from Imani. The way she reached for faces trying to understand expressions. The way she studied people before deciding whether to smile at them. The way she seemed to sense when someone needed comfort, patting at faces with her small hands. She'd started crawling at 5 months, earlier than expected according to the baby books Gabriel had read cover to cover. One day she'd been stationary, and the next she was mobile, scooting across floors with single-minded determination. "We need to baby-proof everything now," Imani had said. They'd spent a weekend covering outlets, patting corners, securing cabinets. Gabriel had crawled through his mansion on hands and knees, seeing his home from Hope's perspective, identifying dangers he'd never noticed from his usual height. "This is what parenting is," Imani had said, watching him test the security of a baby gate. Seeing the world through their eyes. Keeping them safe while letting them explore. The balance was hard. Gabriel wanted to protect Hope from everything, wrap her in bubble wrap and never let anything hurt her. But Imani reminded him that Hope needed to learn, to fall and get back up, to discover her own capabilities. "Let her try," Imani would say when Gabriel instinctively reached to help Hope with something. "She's stronger than you think." And she was. Hope pulled herself up on furniture, tumbled back down, and tried again. She reached for toys just out of grasp, working through frustration to achieve her goals. She was learning resilience, and Gabriel was learning to trust her process. His business associates had largely accepted his new priorities, though some relationships had cooled. Richard had come around after meeting Hope, spending an afternoon watching Gabriel navigate fatherhood with a mix of bewilderment and respect. "You're actually good at this," Richard had said. "You sound surprised." "I am. You've never been the warm and fuzzy type." "I'm still not warm and fuzzy." "Gabriel, you just spent 20 minutes making airplane noises to get Hope to eat carrots." "That's different. That's strategy." But it wasn't, and they both knew it. Gabriel had softened. Fatherhood had worn down edges he'd spent decades building up. He laughed more. Worried about things that couldn't be quantified in spreadsheets. Found joy in moments that would have seemed inconsequential before. Like the morning Hope said her first word. Gabriel had been getting ready for a video conference, and Hope had been playing in her playpen near his office. He'd been running through his presentation mentally when he heard it. "Dada." He'd frozen, certain he'd imagined it. But Hope looked right at him and said it again. "Dada." Gabriel had abandoned his conference, scooped Hope up, and called for Imani. When she'd come running, worried something was wrong, he'd simply said, "She called me Dada." Imani's smile had been radiant. "Say it again, Hope. Say Dada." Hope had obliged, and they'd spent the next hour encouraging her, celebrating each repetition like it was a miracle. Which to Gabriel it was. The video conference had been rescheduled. His business partners had been annoyed. Gabriel hadn't cared even a little bit. But fatherhood wasn't all milestones and precious moments. There were hard days when Hope was inconsolable and Gabriel felt like a failure. Days when she got sick and he paced the floor, terrified despite Imani's assurances that it was just a normal cold. There were nights when he lay awake worrying about things he'd never considered before. Was he doing enough? Was he doing too much? Would Hope remember being abandoned? Would she resent him someday for making decisions without her input? Would he screw this up the way his own mother had screwed up raising him? "You're overthinking," Imani said during one such late-night worry session. They developed a habit of meeting in the kitchen after Hope was asleep, talking over tea or coffee about the day, about concerns, about life. "I don't want to mess this up." "You won't." "How can you be sure?" "Because you care enough to worry about it." Bad parents don't lie awake questioning their choices. They just make them and move on. What if caring isn't enough? Imani reached across the table and took his hand. The gesture had become common between them, small touches that conveyed support and connection. "You were in foster care. You know what bad parenting looks like. You're giving Hope everything you didn't have. Stability, love, presence. That's enough. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Love her. Show up for her. Be honest with her. The rest will figure itself out." Gabriel wanted to believe her. Most days he did. But some nights the doubts crept in, shadows of his own childhood whispering that he didn't know how to do this, that he was playing at being a father without understanding what it really meant. Those were the nights Imani stayed longer, talking him through the fear, reminding him of every success, every moment when he'd made the right choice. She was his anchor, keeping him steady when everything felt uncertain. Their relationship had deepened into something Gabriel couldn't quite name. More than friendship, not quite romance, though the romantic element was definitely there, hovering between them like a question neither was ready to ask. They moved around each other with practiced ease, their routines synchronized. Gabriel made coffee while Imani prepared Hope's breakfast. Imani handled morning care while Gabriel cleared his schedule for Hope's wake time. They traded off throughout the day, each stepping in when the other needed a break, functioning as a unit so seamlessly that Patricia had commented on it during her last visit. "You two work well together," she'd said. "We've had practice," Gabriel had replied. "It's more than that. There's genuine partnership here. That's rare even among married couples." The comment had lingered. Because that's what they were building, wasn't it? A partnership. A family. Just without the official label or the romantic commitment. But Gabriel wanted those things. He wanted to wake up next to Imani, not just share coffee with her in the morning. Wanted to kiss her goodnight instead of saying it from separate doorways. Wanted to build a future that included all three of them, not just as co-parents but as a complete family. He tried to tell her. Multiple times he'd started conversations that veered toward confession, toward asking what she wanted, where she saw this going. But each time something stopped him. Fear maybe. Or respect for the boundaries they'd established. Or worry that pushing for more might break what they already had. So he waited. And watched. And hoped that eventually the right moment would come. Meanwhile, Hope continued to grow and change. She learned to clap. To wave bye-bye. To shake her head no with impressive conviction. She developed opinions about everything from food to clothes to which toys were acceptable. She adored Imani, reaching for her constantly, settling most easily in her arms. But she also showed deep attachment to Gabriel, crying when he left the room, beaming when he returned. She was bonding with both of them, building the foundation of trust that would carry her through life. "She's going to be okay," Imani said one evening, watching Hope sleep on the baby monitor. "Whatever came before, whatever circumstances led to her being in that snow, she's going to be okay now. Because of you. Because of us. We're doing this together, Gabriel. We're giving her the childhood she deserves." And they were. Every day in 100 small ways they were building Hope's future. Teaching her to trust, to love, to believe the world could be safe and good. Teaching her that she mattered, that she was wanted, that she would always have someone fighting for her. Gabriel had learned more about being a father in 6 months than he'd thought possible. He'd learned patience and flexibility. He'd learned that love wasn't just a feeling but an action, repeated constantly in diaper changes and bottle feedings and midnight comfort. He'd learned that his capacity for caring was far greater than he'd ever imagined. And he'd learned that family wasn't about blood or biology. It was about showing up. About choosing each other every day. About building something together that was stronger than anything you could build alone. Hope had taught him that. And so had Imani. Now he just needed to figure out how to tell her. The first snow of the new season fell on a Sunday morning. Gabriel stood at the window of the living room, watching white flakes drift down, and felt his chest tighten with memory. 1 year ago he'd found hope in weather just like this. 1 year ago his entire life had changed. "You're thinking about that day," Imani said, appearing beside him with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "How did you know?" "Because I've been thinking about it too. 1 year, Gabriel. Can you believe it?" He took the mug she offered, their fingers brushing in the exchange. Hope was napping upstairs, giving them rare quiet time together. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like she's always been ours. She has always been ours. We just didn't know it yet." They stood together, watching the snow accumulate on the trees, on the driveway, on the world they'd built together. The comfortable silence between them had become Gabriel's favorite sound. "I want to tell you something," he said. "About why finding hope affected me so deeply." Imani turned to face him fully, giving him her complete attention. "Okay." Gabriel set down his mug and moved to the couch. Imani followed, sitting close enough that their knees nearly touched. This was it. The conversation he'd been avoiding for months. The truth he'd been too scared to share completely. "I told you I was in foster care. That I aged out of the system. But I didn't tell you everything. You don't have to if you're not ready." "I'm ready. I think I need to." He took a breath, gathering thoughts and memories he usually kept locked away. "My mother tried. I want you to know that. She was 17 when she had me and she tried to be a good parent. But she had addiction issues and no support, and eventually Child Protective Services got involved. I was 4 when they took me away." Imani's hand found his, squeezing gently. "I went to my first foster home with a trash bag of clothes and a teddy bear my mother had given me. The family was nice enough. They had 3 other foster kids and we were well cared for physically. But I knew I was temporary. They reminded us constantly that we were just passing through, that we shouldn't get too comfortable. That must have been so hard. It taught me not to attach. I went through 6 homes before I aged out. Some were good. Some were okay. Two were really bad. I learned to make myself small, to not cause trouble, to be grateful for whatever I got. Gabriel paused, surprised by how hard this still was, how much those old wounds still ached. When I was 7, I was placed with a couple who said they wanted to adopt me. I let myself believe it. Let myself think I'd finally have a real family. I called them Mom and Dad. I unpacked my trash bag and put my clothes in actual drawers. I let myself feel safe. What happened? The wife got pregnant. Suddenly they didn't need a foster kid anymore. They sent me back. Imani made a sound of pain and Gabriel squeezed her hand. That's when I learned the real lesson. Don't hope. Don't trust. Don't let yourself believe you matter to anyone because you'll only be disappointed. I spent the next 11 years building walls, making sure no one could hurt me that way again. And then you found hope. And then I found hope. Lying in the snow with a note saying she was no one's child. And I saw myself. I saw that 7-year-old boy who'd believed in family and been crushed. And I couldn't drive away. I couldn't let her grow up feeling the way I felt. Worthless. Unwanted. Temporary. Tears slid down Gabriel's face. He didn't try to hide them. I picked her up and something inside me broke open. All those walls I'd built, all that protection I'd wrapped around my heart, it just crumbled. Because she needed me. Not my money or my status or any of the things I'd spent my adult life accumulating. She just needed someone to care. And I realized I could be that someone. Imani pulled him into a hug and Gabriel let himself be held, let himself release years of pain and loneliness into her strength. You are that someone, Imani whispered. You're the father Hope needs. The father you needed. I'm terrified I'll mess it up. You won't. How can you be sure? Imani pulled back enough to look at him, her eyes fierce with certainty. Because you're already doing it right. Every day you show up for her. You put her needs first. You love her without conditions or limits. That's all any child needs. Gabriel wiped his eyes, feeling raw and exposed but also lighter. Sharing this with Imani, letting her see his deepest scars, it felt necessary. Felt right. Your turn, he said. My turn. To tell me the hard stuff. To let me in the way I just let you in. Imani took a breath, seeming to gather her courage. Okay. But it's not pretty. Neither was mine. She smiled at that, then sobered. I told you my brother died when he was 16. What I didn't tell you was that I was there. I watched it happen. Gabriel's heart clenched. We were walking home from school. Just a normal Tuesday afternoon. We were arguing about something stupid, I don't even remember what. And then there were gunshots. Marcus grabbed me, tried to shield me, and he got hit. 3 times. Her voice had gone flat, emotionless, the way people talked when the feelings were too big to process. He fell and I fell with him. There was blood everywhere. I was screaming, trying to keep pressure on the wounds the way I'd seen on TV shows. But there was too much blood and he kept telling me it was okay, that I was okay, even though he was the one dying. Imani. People stood around us. They had their phones out, recording. Some were calling 911, but most were just filming. Making content. Watching my brother bleed out like it was entertainment. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. She stopped, her whole body shaking. Gabriel pulled her close, the way she'd held him, offering what comfort he could. I blamed myself for years. If we hadn't been arguing, maybe we would have taken a different route. If I'd been faster, smarter, better at first aid. If I'd done something differently, maybe he'd still be alive. It wasn't your fault. I know that now. It took years of therapy to accept it, but I know. And I became a nurse because of him. Because I wanted to be someone who could actually help, not just stand around filming. That's why you agreed to help with Hope. Yes. When I saw you in that ER, refusing to leave her, fighting for her, I saw someone who helped instead of just watched. And I wanted to be part of that. Part of saving a life instead of losing one. They sat together, holding each other, sharing pain and healing. 2 people scarred by loss, finding comfort in shared understanding. We're quite a pair, Gabriel said eventually. We are. Imani pulled back, smiling through tears. Broken people building something whole. Is that what we're doing? I think so. I think we're healing each other while we heal Hope. Gabriel cupped her face gently, thumbs wiping away her tears. You've healed me more than you know. You've done the same for me. They looked at each other and Gabriel saw the moment everything shifted. Saw the exact second when friendship and partnership became something more. Something deeper. Something undeniable. Imani, he started. I know, she said softly. I feel it too. This could complicate things. The adoption, our arrangement, everything we've built. I know that too. And you're still? Still falling for you. Yes. I have been for months. Hope's cry came through the baby monitor, breaking the moment. But instead of pulling away, they both smiled. Perfect timing, Imani said. She's got a sense for these things. They went upstairs together, retrieving Hope from her crib. She was standing, holding the rails, bouncing with excitement at seeing them. At 11 months old, she was on the verge of walking, her personality bright and determined. Dada, she said, reaching for Gabriel. Mama, she added, looking at Imani. The word stopped them both. Hope had been saying variations of it for weeks, but this was clear, directed, intentional. Did she just? Gabriel couldn't finish. She did. Imani's voice was thick with emotion. She called me Mama. Hope grinned, pleased with the reaction. Mama. Dada. Gabriel picked her up, then pulled Imani close, creating a circle of 3. That's right, Hope. We're Mama and Dada. We're your family. Hope patted both their faces, babbling happily. And in that moment, standing in the nursery with snow falling outside and love overflowing inside, Gabriel knew everything was about to change. The walls he'd built were completely gone. The fear that had guided his life for so long had been replaced by something stronger. Love. For Hope, for Imani, for the family they were creating together. Later, after Hope was fed and playing on the living room floor, Gabriel and Imani sat on the couch watching her. What do we do now? Imani asked. About us. About everything. Gabriel considered. We keep doing what we've been doing. We raise Hope together. We build this family. But we're honest about what we're feeling. We don't hide it anymore. And if people judge? Let them. I stopped caring what people think the day I picked Hope up out of that snow. All that matters is us. This family. Our happiness. Imani leaned her head on his shoulder, fitting perfectly against his side. I like the sound of that. Our family. Our happiness. Hope crawled over to them, pulling herself up using the couch. She stood there swaying, hands gripping the cushion, looking incredibly proud of herself. She's going to walk soon, Imani said. Any day now. Everything's changing. Everything changed a year ago. We're just finally catching up. That night, after Hope was asleep, Gabriel and Imani stood outside their separate bedroom doors the way they did every night. But instead of saying goodnight and parting, Gabriel took Imani's hand. I don't want to rush this. I don't want to mess up what we have. But, Imani prompted. But I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I think I've been in love with you for months. I just couldn't admit it. Imani smiled, that beautiful smile that lit up her whole face. I love you too. I have for a while. So what do? We take it slow. We figure it out together. Just like we've done with everything else. Gabriel kissed her forehead, gentle and sweet. Together. I like the sound of that. Me too. They parted for their separate rooms, but something fundamental had shifted. The walls were down. The truth was out. And the future looked brighter than ever before. Hope took her first steps on a Tuesday morning 2 weeks after that snow day. Imani had been encouraging her, holding her hands and walking backward while Hope shuffled forward. Gabriel had been making breakfast, but he'd come running when he heard Imani's excited voice. Let go, Hope. You can do it. Walk to Dada. Hope had looked at Imani, then at Gabriel standing 5 feet away and made a decision. She let go of Imani's hands and took 3 wobbly steps forward before falling into Gabriel's arms. He'd caught her, swung her up, laughed with pure joy. Imani had rushed over, and they'd held Hope between them, celebrating this milestone the way they celebrated everything. Together. The moment had been perfect. Ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. A family moment. That's what they were now. Not just co-parents or housemates or friends. A family in every way except legally. And Gabriel was starting to think about fixing that too. He'd fallen completely in love with Imani. It had happened gradually in 1,000 small moments. Her laugh when Hope did something funny. Her patience when teaching Gabriel new parenting skills. Her kindness with everyone from delivery drivers to business executives who called his home. Her beauty which went far deeper than physical appearance. He loved how she moved through the world with grace and confidence. How she spoke her mind but never with cruelty. How she cared for Hope with a tenderness that made his heart ache. How she looked at him sometimes like he was more than just a billionaire, like he was simply Gabriel, a man trying his best. But loving her was complicated. They lived together, raised a child together, had built a life together without ever defining what they were to each other. And Gabriel worried constantly about disrupting that balance. What if he pushed too hard and scared her away? What if she didn't want the same things he wanted? What if trying for more ruined what they already had? You're overthinking again, Imani said, appearing in his office doorway. She wore a red sundress that made her skin glow, her hair in twists that fell past her shoulders. She was beautiful and Gabriel couldn't stop staring. I'm thinking exactly the right amount. Hope is playing in her room. We have maybe 20 minutes before she needs attention. Come sit with me. Gabriel followed her to the living room, where afternoon sun painted everything gold. They sat on the couch, the space between them both comfortable and charged with possibility. We need to talk about us, Imani said. Gabriel's heart rate picked up. Okay. We said we loved each other 2 weeks ago. But we haven't done anything about it. We're still sleeping in separate rooms, still maintaining these boundaries that maybe don't make sense anymore. I don't want to rush you. You're not. I'm the one bringing this up. She took his hand, her fingers lacing through his. I want more, Gabriel. I want to stop pretending we're just co-parents or friends. I want to be with you. Really be with you. You mean? I mean everything. Dating, romance, building a future together. Not just for Hope's sake, but for us. Gabriel felt like he could breathe for the first time in weeks. I want that too. I've wanted it for so long. Then why have we been waiting? Fear, I guess. Fear of messing this up. Fear of losing you if I asked for too much. Imani moved closer, her free hand coming up to touch his face. You're not going to lose me. I'm not going anywhere. I chose this life, Gabriel. I chose you and Hope. And I keep choosing you every single day. I choose you too. Both of you. You're my family. Then let's stop being scared. Let's just be together. Gabriel kissed her. Finally, after months of wanting to, he closed the distance between them and kissed her. And Imani kissed him back, her arms wrapping around his neck, her body pressing close. The kiss was everything Gabriel had imagined and more. Sweet and passionate, tender and desperate, like coming home after a long journey. He pulled her closer and she melted into him, and for a perfect moment, nothing existed except the two of them. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Imani smiled. Why did we wait so long to do that? Because we're both idiots? She laughed. Speak for yourself. I've been an idiot about this. About us. I've spent months pretending I didn't feel what I felt because I was too scared to risk it. And now I'm still scared. But I'm more scared of not having you than I am of trying. Imani kissed him again, softer this time. Good answer. Hope's voice came through the baby monitor, calling for them. They pulled apart reluctantly, both smiling like teenagers. We should get her, Imani said. We should. But they sat there for another moment, just looking at each other, adjusting to this new reality. They were together now. Truly together. When they finally went to get Hope, they went together, hand in hand. And when Hope saw them, she clapped, like she'd known all along this was how it should be. Over the next week, their relationship shifted subtly. Small changes that felt monumental. Gabriel kissed Imani goodbye when he left for meetings. They held hands while watching Hope play. They sat closer at meals, shared more lingering looks, stole moments alone when Hope napped. But they were also cautious. They didn't rush into anything physical beyond kisses. They kept separate bedrooms for now, knowing they needed to adjust to this new dynamic. They put Hope first always, making sure their relationship didn't disrupt her routines or security. We have time, Imani said when Gabriel apologized for taking things slow. We have all the time in the world. Gabriel's business associates noticed the change. During a video conference, Richard commented that Gabriel seemed happier. I am happy. The nurse. Her name is Imani. And yes, we're together now. Officially? As official as it gets while still being careful about the adoption process. Richard smiled. I'm happy for you, Gabriel. Truly. You deserve this. I never thought I did. Not until I met Imani and Hope. They're good for you. You're softer now. More human. I was always human. You know what I mean. Before you were all business, all edge. Now you're balanced. Complete. The observation stayed with Gabriel. He had been incomplete before he realized. Living half a life, going through motions without real purpose or connection. Hope and Imani had filled spaces in him he hadn't known were empty. Patricia's next visit came with good news. Your adoption petition is moving forward. We're scheduling the final home visit for next month. If everything checks out, which I'm confident it will, Hope will legally be yours within the next few months. And the biological parents? Gabriel asked. No one has come forward. Abandonment cases like this, where the child is left with a note explicitly stating no claim. It's rare for anyone to contest. You're on track, Gabriel. After Patricia left, Gabriel found Imani in the kitchen preparing lunch. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Hope's adoption is almost final. That's wonderful. Patricia asked about us. About whether our relationship status had changed. Imani turned in his arms. What did you tell her? The truth. That we're together. That we're building a family. She said it might actually help the case, showing Hope has two committed parents who love her. Two parents who love each other too. Yes. That matters. Imani kissed him softly. It matters to me too. All of it. They started planning a future together. Nothing concrete yet, but conversations about what they wanted, what they envisioned. Gabriel talked about scaling back his business commitments even more, focusing on investments he could manage remotely. Imani mentioned returning to nursing part-time eventually, maybe specializing in pediatric home care. You don't have to work, Gabriel said. I know, but I want to. I love being Hope's mother, but I also loved my career. Maybe I can find a balance. Whatever you want. Whatever makes you happy. You make me happy. Hope makes me happy. This life we're building makes me happy. Hope, approaching her first birthday, was thriving. She walked everywhere now, exploring every corner of the mansion with fearless curiosity. She said several words, understood even more, showed personality that delighted and challenged them both. She was stubborn when she wanted to be, refusing to eat certain foods or wear certain clothes. But she was also affectionate, giving hugs and kisses freely, cuddling with both Gabriel and Imani equally. She's going to be a handful as she gets older, Imani said, watching Hope systematically remove every book from a low shelf just to see what would happen. She's already a handful. And you love every minute of it. I do. I never knew I could love someone so much. Either of you. Imani smiled. We love you too. Planning Hope's first birthday party became a project they tackled together. Not a huge event, just something small and meaningful. Close friends, a few of Gabriel's business associates who'd become genuine supporters, the nurses from the hospital where Hope had recovered. They decided on a simple theme with bright colors, balloons, and a smash cake for Hope to destroy. Nothing expensive or showy, despite Gabriel's resources. Just a celebration of the little girl who'd survived against all odds. A year ago she was in the snow, Gabriel said on the eve of the party. And now she's here, healthy and loved and thriving. You gave her that, Gabriel? We gave her that. Together. The party was perfect. Hope was confused by all the attention but delighted by the cake, which she enthusiastically destroyed with both hands while everyone laughed and took pictures. She received gifts she was too young to appreciate but enjoyed tearing the wrapping paper. Gabriel and Imani stood together, his arm around her waist, watching Hope's joy. This was family, Gabriel thought. This messy, beautiful, imperfect perfection. Later, after guests had left and Hope was asleep, exhausted from excitement, Gabriel and Imani cleaned up together. As they worked, Gabriel's phone rang. A known number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Thornton? This is Detective Sarah Chin from Billings PD. We've had a development in the Hope Thornton case. Gabriel's blood ran cold. What kind of development? A woman has come forward claiming to be Hope's biological mother. She's requesting a meeting. I hope you're finding this family's journey as meaningful as I am. What do you think will happen next? Will this woman's claim change everything? Drop a comment with your thoughts and subscribe to see how Gabriel and Imani handle this challenge. Stories like this need your support to reach others who might need them. Gabriel hung up the phone feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath him. For a long moment he just stood there, the detective's words echoing in his mind. Gabriel? Imani's voice cut through his daze. What is it? What's wrong? He turned to look at her, and whatever she saw in his face made her go pale. Someone's claiming to be Hope's biological mother. What? Detective Chin from Billings PD just called. A woman came forward. She wants a meeting. Imani sank into a chair, her hand pressed to her chest. But no one's claimed her for a year. Why now? I don't know. The detective didn't give details. She's setting up a meeting at the police station. Can they take her? Can they just take Hope away? No. Gabriel's voice was fierce. No one is taking Hope. She's ours. We've raised her. We've given her everything. We have legal guardianship, and the adoption is almost final. But even as he said it, fear gripped him. He'd heard stories about biological parents appearing at the last minute, about adoptions being overturned, about children being returned to situations that were less than ideal just because of biology. I need to call my lawyer, he said. The next 2 days were a blur of phone calls and legal consultations. Gabriel's lawyer, a sharp woman named Angela Harris, was reassuring but realistic. "You have a strong case," she said. "You've had custody for a year. Hope's thriving. The biological mother, if that's even who this woman is, abandoned the child. But we need to be prepared for a fight." The meeting was scheduled for Friday. Gabriel and Imani arrived at the police station together, both dressed professionally, both trying to hide their terror behind calm masks. Hope was with a trusted babysitter, the first time they'd left her with anyone else. Detective Chin met them in a conference room. She was in her 40s, professional and compassionate. "Thank you for coming. I know this is difficult." "Is she here?" Gabriel asked. "She's in another room. Before we bring her in, I need to tell you some things. This woman, Carol Stevens, showed up 3 days ago. She claims she left Hope in the snow because she was desperate, homeless, and scared. She says she's been trying to get her life together and wants her daughter back." "Did you verify her claim?" Imani asked. "We're running a DNA test. Results should be back in a week. But Mr. Thornton, Ms. Washington, you need to understand something. If she is Hope's biological mother, and if she can prove she's now capable of caring for a child, the court will have to consider her rights." "She left a baby in the snow to freeze," Gabriel said, his voice hard. "She doesn't have rights. Legally she does. Morally you may disagree, and frankly I understand. But my job is to follow the law." Angela, sitting beside Gabriel, spoke up. "My client has legal guardianship. Any challenge would require significant proof that returning the child would be in the child's best interest. Given the circumstances of abandonment, that's a high bar." "I agree. But we still need to hear her out." Carol Stevens was young, probably mid-20s, with brown hair and tired eyes. She was thin, wearing clothes that looked second-hand but clean. When she saw Gabriel and Imani, she started crying. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt her. I just didn't know what else to do." Gabriel wanted to stay angry, wanted to hold on to his rage at this woman who'd nearly cost Hope her life. But looking at her, he saw desperation. Saw someone who'd been broken by circumstances. "Tell us what happened," Angela said, her tone professional. Carol took a shaky breath. "I got pregnant when I was 23. The father took off as soon as he found out. I tried to make it work. I really did. But I lost my job, couldn't pay rent. I was living in my car when Hope was born." She wiped her eyes, continuing. "I had her at a free clinic. They kept us for 2 days, then we were back in the car. It was summer then, so the heat wasn't as bad. But I couldn't afford diapers, formula, anything. I tried shelters, but they were always full. I tried applying for aid, but the paperwork, the waiting. I was drowning." "So you left her," Gabriel said flatly. "Winter came. My car broke down in the middle of nowhere. It was so cold and Hope was getting sick. I walked to the nearest town, but it was miles. Hope was crying and I couldn't warm her up. I couldn't feed her. I couldn't do anything." Carol's voice broke completely. "I thought she was dying anyway. I thought at least if someone found her, she might have a chance. If she stayed with me, she'd freeze in the car. So I left her under that tree and walked away. I thought I was saving her by letting her go." The room was silent. Imani's hand found Gabriel's under the table, squeezing tight. "I've been in a shelter in Billings for 6 months, Carol continued. "I'm working now, saving money. I've been getting help, seeing a counselor. And every day I thought about my baby. About whether she survived. About whether she hated me." "How did you find out about Hope?" Detective Chin asked. "I saw a news article. About a billionaire who adopted a baby found in the snow. There was a picture and I recognized her blanket. The one I wrapped her in. It was my grandmother's." Gabriel's mind was racing. This woman's story was heartbreaking, but it didn't change the fact that Hope had a family now. A home. Parents who loved her. "What do you want?" he asked. Carol looked at him directly for the first time. "I want to know she's okay. I want to know she's happy. And if she is, if you're giving her everything I couldn't, then maybe I just want to say goodbye properly. To know she didn't die in that snow." "She's perfect," Imani said quietly. "She's healthy and happy and loved. She's walking now, talking. She's smart and stubborn and beautiful." More tears from Carol. "Thank you. Thank you for saving her. For giving her a life." "Are you contesting the adoption?" Angela asked directly. Carol was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Part of me wants to fight for her, to prove I can be her mother. But the bigger part knows I can't give her what you can. I'm barely keeping myself together. How can I take care of a child?" Detective Chin spoke gently. "The DNA results will tell us if you're her biological mother. If you are, you'll have options. You can contest the adoption, though as your situation stands now, it's unlikely to succeed. You can agree to the adoption and request visitation rights. Or you can terminate your parental rights completely, giving Hope full security in her new family. I need time to think, Carol said. You have 1 week, Angela replied. When the DNA results come back, we'll need a decision. The meeting ended. Gabriel and Imani left without speaking until they reached the car. I feel sorry for her, Imani said. So do I. But Hope is ours. I know. I understand desperation. I understand making impossible choices. She thought she was saving Hope by leaving her. She was. If she'd kept Hope in that broken-down car, Hope probably would have died. But that doesn't mean she gets to come back now and disrupt Hope's life. They drove home in tense silence, both processing. When they arrived, Hope was playing with her babysitter, completely unaware of the threat hanging over her future. Mama Dada, she called happily when she saw them. Gabriel picked her up, holding her tight. Hey baby girl. Did you have fun? Hope babbled about her afternoon in her not-quite-words way, and Gabriel felt his heart break. This was his daughter. He'd changed her diapers, walked her through fevers, celebrated every milestone. He'd been there for her first word, first step, first everything. Biology didn't make you a parent. Showing up did. That night, after Hope was asleep, Gabriel and Imani sat in the living room, both too stressed to sleep. What if she contests? Imani asked. Then we fight. With every resource I have. Hope belongs with us. But what if a court disagrees? What if they say biological mother has rights? Then we appeal. And appeal again. I'm not losing hope. Imani moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder. I'm scared. Me too. They sat in the dark, holding each other, facing an uncertain future. Gabriel had never felt so helpless. He could buy almost anything, could influence almost any situation, but this was beyond his control. But he could control his response. He could fight. He could document every moment of Hope's care, could gather evidence of her thriving in their home, could prove that tearing her away would cause harm. Over the next week, Gabriel and Imani did exactly that. They compiled medical records, photographs, videos of Hope's development. They got statements from Patricia about the quality of care, from Hope's pediatrician about her health, from everyone who'd witnessed the family they'd built. They also tried to maintain normalcy for Hope. They played with her, read to her, kept her routine stable. She sensed the tension but couldn't understand it, and they did their best to shield her from their fear. The day the DNA results came back, Gabriel and Imani returned to the police station. Carol was already there, looking even more nervous than last time. Detective Chin delivered the news simply. The DNA is a match. Carol Stevens is Hope's biological mother. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I've made a decision, Carol said before anyone could respond. I've thought about it every day, every night. And I know what I need to do. Gabriel braced himself, Imani's hand in his. I want to terminate my parental rights. The relief was so intense Gabriel felt dizzy. Are you sure? Detective Chin asked. I'm sure. Hope has a family. A real family who can give her everything. Who already loves her. I can't compete with that. I won't try. Carol looked at Gabriel and Imani. But I have one request. What? Gabriel asked. Can I see her? Just once? To say goodbye properly? Gabriel and Imani looked at each other. It was a risk. But it was also fair. Yes, Imani said. You can see her. They arranged it for the next day at the mansion. Carol arrived nervous, carrying a small wrapped package. When she saw Hope playing on the floor, she broke down crying. She's beautiful. She looked so happy. Hope, curious about the stranger, crawled over. She pulled herself up using Carol's leg, looking up with bright, inquisitive eyes. Hi baby, Carol whispered. You don't know me, but I'm so glad you're okay. I'm so glad you found people who love you. She opened the package, revealing a small silver locket. This was my grandmother's. It's the only thing of value I own. I want Hope to have it. So she knows she came from somewhere, even if I couldn't be her mother. Imani took the locket, her eyes wet. We'll keep it for her. We'll tell her the truth when she's old enough to understand. Carol spent an hour with Hope, just watching her play, occasionally reaching out to touch her hair, her hands. It was heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. When she finally left, she hugged both Gabriel and Imani. Thank you for saving her life. For giving her everything I couldn't. Please tell her. Tell her I loved her enough to let her go. After she was gone, Gabriel and Imani stood holding Hope between them. That was the hardest thing I've ever watched, Imani said. She did the right thing. I know. It doesn't make it easier. The paperwork was finalized within days. Carol signed away her parental rights, and the adoption process moved forward without opposition. Hope was legally, officially, permanently theirs. That night, after celebrating with a quiet dinner and Hope's favorite foods, Gabriel proposed an idea. Come away with me. With us. Just for a weekend. Let's go somewhere and celebrate this family. Celebrate us. A vacation? A first real date. For all three of us. Imani smiled. Where were you thinking? Somewhere warm. Somewhere with a beach. Somewhere we can just be a family without stress or pressure or fear. That sounds perfect. They spent a weekend in California, staying at a beachfront hotel. They built sandcastles with Hope, walked along the shore, ate ice cream and let Hope make a mess. They laughed and played and forgot about billion-dollar businesses and legal battles and everything except being together. On the last evening after Hope was asleep in the hotel room with a babysitter watching, Gabriel and Imani walked on the beach alone. This has been perfect, Imani said. It has. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. For someone else to appear or some other challenge. Nothing's going to go wrong. We're safe now. All of us. Imani stopped walking, turning to face him. The ocean breeze caught her hair, the setting sun painting her in gold and rose. I love you, Gabriel Thornton. I love you, Imani Washington. He kissed her as the waves crashed behind them, as the sun set on a perfect day, as their future opened up bright and clear. They were a family. Legally, emotionally, completely. And nothing was going to change that. 6 months after Carol terminated her parental rights, Hope's adoption was finalized. The courthouse ceremony was small but meaningful. The judge, a kindly woman in her 60s, smiled as she signed the papers that made Hope officially Hope Thornton. Congratulations, she said. May your family find joy in every moment together. Gabriel held Hope, who was wearing a bright blue dress Imani had chosen. Imani stood beside them, beaming. They were photographed, celebrated, made official. How does it feel? Imani asked as they left the courthouse. Complete. Finally complete. Hope grabbed Gabriel's face, a gesture she did when she wanted attention. Dada. Yes, baby. I'm your dada. Forever now. Mama too? Hope looked at Imani. Yes. Mama too. They celebrated at home with a small gathering. Patricia was there, along with Angela the lawyer, a few nurses from the hospital, Richard and some of Gabriel's business associates who'd become genuine friends. Hope was the center of attention, loving every moment. You did it, Patricia said to Gabriel. You built a real family. We did it. Imani and I together. Have you thought about making that official too? The question surprised him. Making what official? Patricia smiled knowingly. You and Imani. Anyone can see how much you love each other. Hope has 2 parents now legally. Maybe it's time to make the family complete in every way. The seed was planted. Gabriel had been thinking about marriage but in abstract terms like something for the future. Now, with Hope's adoption finalized with their family secure, the future felt immediate. He wanted to marry Imani. Wanted to wake up beside her every morning, not just share coffee before going to separate rooms. Wanted to build a life together that wasn't divided between professional boundaries and personal feelings. But how to ask? When to ask? Gabriel had negotiated billion-dollar deals with confidence, but asking Imani to marry him terrified him. He started planning. Carefully, secretly, the way he approached any major business decision. He bought a ring, a simple diamond on a platinum band. Nothing flashy, just beautiful and timeless like Imani herself. He thought about elaborate proposals, romantic gestures, but nothing felt right. Imani wasn't someone who needed grand displays. She valued authenticity over spectacle. So he decided to keep it simple. To ask her in a moment that felt true to who they were. Meanwhile, Imani had moved into the master bedroom. They'd finally, after months of dancing around it, decided to stop pretending they needed separate spaces. Her things migrated gradually into his room until one day she just didn't go back to the guest suite. Is this okay? She'd asked that first night, standing in the doorway in her pajamas. It's perfect. It's how it should have been all along. They'd gone slow with physical intimacy, both nervous about changing what they had. But being together felt natural, right? Like coming home. Hope's room was next door to theirs now. They could hear her through the monitor, could check on her without traversing the entire mansion. They fell into new routines, morning and night rituals that included all 3 of them. Gabriel reduced his business commitments even further. He'd realized something important. His company would survive without his constant involvement. His daughter wouldn't. He wanted to be present for everything, not just the milestones but the ordinary moments that made up a life. He started working from home 4 days a week, going into the office only when absolutely necessary. His team had adjusted, become more autonomous, and the business thrived. Turned out, micromanaging wasn't as essential as he'd thought. Imani had started doing consulting work for pediatric nursing, helping develop home care programs. She worked part-time, mostly during Hope's naps or after bedtime, using her experience to help other families. "It feels good," she said one evening after a consultation call. "Using my skills but still being here for Hope. You're making a difference. We're making a difference. Look at Hope. Look at how far she's come." Hope was indeed thriving. At 18 months old, she was running more than walking, talking in 2- and 3-word sentences, showing personality that delighted and challenged them both. She was stubborn, determined, affectionate, clever. Everything you'd want in a child. She called Gabriel Dada and Imani Mama without hesitation. She had no memory of the snow, of being abandoned, of anything before Gabriel found her. She only knew love and security and the warm home they'd built. Gabriel found his moment to propose on a random Tuesday. Nothing special about the day, no occasion. Just an ordinary evening at home. Imani was in the kitchen making dinner. Hope was playing with blocks in her playpen nearby. Gabriel had the ring in his pocket, had been carrying it for weeks, waiting for the right moment. And suddenly, watching Imani stir sauce while humming, watching Hope stack blocks with fierce concentration, he knew. This was the moment. This ordinary, perfect snapshot of their life together. "Imani?" She looked up, smiling. "Yeah." Gabriel pulled out the ring. Her eyes went wide. "I don't have a grand speech prepared. I'm not good at flowery words. But I love you. I love the life we've built, the family we've become. And I want to make it official. Will you marry me?" Imani's hand flew to her mouth, tears already falling. "Gabriel? You don't have to answer now. Take time to think about it." "Yes." "What?" "Yes. I don't need time. My answer is yes." Gabriel stood, crossing to her, sliding the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Then he kissed her, soft and sweet, while Hope made happy sounds from her playpen. When they pulled apart, both crying happy tears, Hope was standing at the edge of her playpen holding up her arms. Up, up. They both laughed, lifting her together. She saw the ring and grabbed Imani's hand, fascinated by the sparkle. "Pretty?" Hope said. "Yes, baby. It's pretty. Mama's getting married to Dada." Hope clapped, not understanding but catching their joy. Yay. They started planning a wedding, but nothing elaborate. Neither of them wanted a big event. They wanted something simple and meaningful. "Just us and people who matter," Imani said. "Small ceremony maybe here at the house?" "Perfect. With Hope as our flower girl." They set a date 3 months out, enough time to plan but not so long they'd overthink everything. They hired a simple planner who understood their vision, decorated the back garden with lights and flowers, kept the guest list under 30 people. Imani's mother flew in from Atlanta. Gabriel met her with nervous excitement. "So you're the billionaire who swept my daughter off her feet," Mrs. Washington said, looking him over critically. "I'm the man who loves your daughter, yes. And that baby you found? She's really yours now." "She's ours. Mine and Imani's." Mrs. Washington's face softened. "My baby girl always wanted to be a mother. I'm glad she found you and Hope." The wedding day arrived warm and clear. Gabriel wore a navy suit. Imani wore a simple white dress that took his breath away. Hope wore green with flowers in her hair, carrying a basket of petals she was supposed to scatter but mostly ate. They stood in the garden surrounded by family and friends. Patricia was there, beaming. Angela, Richard, nurses from the hospital, business associates who'd become true friends. The officiant was brief and heartfelt. Gabriel and Imani wrote their own vows. "I promise to love you completely," Gabriel said. "To choose you every day. To build a life with you that honors everything we've been through and everything we'll face together. You took a chance on a stranger with a baby and you gave us both a family. I will spend my life being worthy of that gift." Imani was crying before she even started speaking. "I promise to stand beside you always. To parent Hope with love and patience. To be your partner in all things. You showed me what true strength looks like. It's not in never falling, it's in getting back up. It's in reaching for something better. I will spend my life reaching with you." They exchanged rings. Simple bands to match Imani's engagement ring. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Gabriel kissed Imani while their guests cheered. Hope, sitting with Mrs. Washington in the front row, clapped enthusiastically. The reception was held right there in the garden. Simple food, music, laughter. Hope danced with anyone who'd hold her, delighted by the attention and celebration. Gabriel and Imani had their first dance as Mr. and Mrs. Thornton while Hope watched from her grandmother's arms. "How does it feel?" Imani asked, swaying to the music. "Like everything I never knew I needed." "Same." They kissed again and their guests clapped again, and Hope mimicked the kiss on her grandmother's cheek, making everyone laugh. Later that evening, after guests had left and Hope was asleep and Mrs. Washington had gone to her hotel, Gabriel and Imani stood in their bedroom, still in their wedding clothes. "We did it," Imani said. "We're married. A family. Officially and completely." Gabriel pulled her close. "I love you, Mrs. Thornton. I love you, Mr. Thornton." They made love for the first time as husband and wife, tender and passionate, building on months of growing intimacy. Afterward, lying together in the dark, Imani spoke softly. "I want to have a baby. With you. A sibling for Hope." Gabriel's heart swelled. Yeah. If you want that too. I want everything with you. A whole house full of kids if you want." She laughed. "Let's start with one more and see how we handle it." They fell asleep holding each other, planning a future that kept expanding. More children, more love, more family. Everything Gabriel had never let himself want when he was growing up alone. The next morning, Hope woke them early, climbing into their bed with the help of a step stool. "Mama, Dada, up." They pulled her between them and she snuggled in, content. This was family, Gabriel thought. This perfect, messy, beautiful moment. "I was thinking," Imani said, stroking Hope's hair. "We should do something to honor where Hope came from. Maybe start a foundation to help single mothers in crisis." "That's perfect. We could fund shelters, provide resources, make sure no one feels desperate enough to leave their baby in the snow. We could call it Hope's Foundation." Hope's Foundation. I like it. They spent the morning in bed, all three of them just being together. Planning foundations and futures and everything that came with building a life. Gabriel looked at his wife, at his daughter, at the family he'd created from nothing, and felt gratitude so intense it hurt. He'd been abandoned as a child. Had grown up alone and angry. Had built walls to keep everyone out. And then he'd found a baby in the snow. And those walls had crumbled. And he'd found Imani. And together they'd built something neither could have built alone. A family. A home. A future full of love and possibility. Hope sat up, looking between her parents. "Hungry." They laughed, the spell broken by toddler practicality. "Come on," Imani said, swinging Hope into her arms. "Let's make pancakes." They went downstairs together, Gabriel's arm around Imani's waist, Hope babbling about pancakes and syrup. Just a normal morning in their new life. And it was perfect. 2 years into their marriage, with Hope now 3.5 years old, Gabriel's life had settled into a rhythm he'd never thought possible. Contentment. A full life that didn't require constant achievement or accumulation. Imani was 4 months pregnant with their second child. Hope was excited about becoming a big sister, though she didn't fully understand what that meant yet. "Baby in mama's belly," she'd say, patting Imani's growing stomach. "That's right, sweet girl. Your little sister." They'd found out the gender 2 weeks ago. Another girl. Gabriel had cried in the ultrasound room, overwhelmed by the idea of another daughter to love and protect. Hope's Foundation had launched 6 months earlier, providing support for single mothers in crisis. They'd already helped 20 women find housing, jobs, and resources. Each success felt personal, like preventing another Hope from being left in the cold. Life was good. Better than good. Which is why Gabriel should have known something would go wrong. It started with a phone call. A known number. Gabriel almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Thornton? This is Karen Mitchell from News Channel 5. I'm reaching out about Hope's story." Gabriel's stomach dropped. "What about it?" "We're doing a piece on adoption and child abandonment. We'd love to interview you and your wife about Hope's rescue and adoption." "We're not interested in publicity." "I understand. But Mr. Thornton, there's been a development. A woman contacted us claiming to be Hope's biological mother." "That's impossible. Hope's biological mother terminated her rights 2 years ago. This is a different woman. She claims Carol Stevens was lying, that she's the real mother. She's demanding custody." Gabriel felt the world tilt. This is a scam. Maybe. But she's making noise on social media, claiming you stole her baby. I thought you should know before the story breaks. After hanging up, Gabriel immediately called Angela. Someone's claiming to be Hope's biological mother. says Carol Stevens lied. Angela was quiet for a moment. We have DNA proof that Carol was the mother. This new woman, whoever she is, would need to prove her claim. Can she disrupt the adoption? Not easily. Hope's adoption is final. Sealed records. But she can make accusations 'cause problems create publicity. Find out who she is and what she wants. Over the next week, the situation intensified. The woman, calling herself Janet Miller, posted on social media claiming Gabriel had stolen her baby. She shared photos that looked vaguely like Hope, though any baby photos could look similar. Billionaire steals baby from poor mother, one headline read. Kidnapped at birth, mothers fight for justice, said another. The stories were garbage, based on Janet's lies and speculation, but they spread. Gabriel's phone rang constantly with reporters, with angry strangers, with people who believed Janet without question. Imani was terrified. What if she tries to take Hope? She won't. She can't. We have legal protection. Legal protection didn't stop Carol from appearing. Legal protection doesn't stop people from believing lies. Gabriel hired private investigators to look into Janet Miller. What they found was disturbing. Janet had a history of scams. She'd claimed to be the mother of 3 other children in the past, trying to extort money from families or get media attention. She'd done time for fraud. She was exactly what they'd feared, a con artist targeting them. We have proof she's lying, Angela said. We can sue for defamation, get a restraining order, shut this down. Do it. I want her nowhere near my family. But Janet was smart. She stayed just on the legal side of things, making claims without direct threats, generating publicity without giving them clear grounds to act. Then she showed up at their house. Gabriel was at work, Imani was home with Hope. The doorbell rang and Imani, thinking it was a delivery, answered. Janet was standing there with a camera crew. That's my baby, she screamed, pointing at Hope who was playing in the background. Give me back my daughter. Imani slammed the door and locked it, then grabbed Hope and ran upstairs. She called 911, then Gabriel. Someone's here claiming to be Hope's mother. There are cameras. I'm scared. Gabriel left his office immediately, driving home far too fast. When he arrived, police were there, Janet was being escorted away, and Imani was shaking in the living room with Hope clutched to her chest. Are you okay? Is Hope okay? We're okay. Just scared. Hope, sensing the tension, cried. Mama scared. Dada scared. We're not scared anymore, Gabriel lied, taking them both in his arms. We're safe. But they didn't feel safe. That night, Gabriel hired security. Guards at the gate, cameras everywhere, people monitoring who came and went. Their peaceful home became a fortress. Hope didn't understand why strangers were suddenly around all the time. She asked questions they struggled to answer. Who is that man? Pointing to a security guard. He's here to keep us safe, sweetheart. Safe from what? How do you explain to a 3-year-old that someone wants to take her away? That people are lying about her family? That the world can be cruel and dangerous? Just safe, Imani said. So we can play and be happy. But playing became harder. They couldn't go to the park without photographers following. Couldn't take Hope to her preschool without reporters asking questions. Their private life became public spectacle. The stress affected Imani's pregnancy. Her blood pressure spiked. The doctor ordered bed rest. You need to relax, Gabriel said, feeling helpless. How can I relax when someone's trying to take our daughter? Angela worked around the clock on their case. The DNA evidence proved Carol was Hope's biological mother, not Janet. But Janet kept claiming the DNA was faked, that Gabriel had bought off everyone. We're filing a lawsuit, Angela said. Defamation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're going to end this. But lawsuits took time. Meanwhile, Janet's social media following grew. People loved a David versus Goliath story, and Janet positioned herself as David fighting the billionaire Goliath. Billionaire uses money to steal baby, the headline screamed. Poor mother denied her child by rich man's lawyers. It didn't matter that none of it was true. People believed what made a good story. Gabriel wanted to fight back publicly, but Angela advised against it. Don't engage. It'll just give her more ammunition. We stick to the legal route. Hope started having nightmares. She woke up crying, asking if someone was going to take her away. No one's taking you anywhere, Gabriel promised. You're ours forever. Promise. Promise. But how could he promise when the world felt so uncertain? The legal case moved slowly. Janet hired a lawyer, some ambulance chaser who saw opportunity in the publicity. They filed motions, demanded DNA tests, made claims that kept getting dismissed but kept generating headlines. Gabriel's business suffered. Partners questioned his judgment. Deals fell through. People didn't want to associate with someone accused of kidnapping, even if the accusations were baseless. This could destroy everything, Richard warned. I don't care about the business. I care about my family. The business supports your family. Then it supports my family. Hope comes first. Imani comes first. Always. The breaking point came when Janet showed up at Hope's preschool. Security stopped her, but not before she'd screamed at Hope through the fence. I'm your real mommy. They stole you from me. Hope came home confused and upset. Teacher said that lady is lying. But why would she lie? Imani held Hope while Gabriel called Angela. We need a restraining order. Today. I'm on it. That night, after Hope finally fell asleep, Gabriel and Imani sat in their bedroom, both exhausted and terrified. I can't do this much longer, Imani said. The stress, the fear, worrying about Hope, about the baby. I feel like I'm breaking. You're the strongest person I know. I don't feel strong. I feel scared and tired and angry. Gabriel pulled her close. We're going to end this. Whatever it takes. What if we can't? What if she keeps harassing us forever? Then we'll keep fighting. For our family. For Hope. For this baby. He touched Imani's stomach gently. We don't give up. The next day Angela called with news. Janet's lawyer dropped her. Turns out even he has limits. And our investigators found something. Janet was in California when Hope was abandoned. There's no way she could be the mother. We have proof. Finally. I'm filing for an emergency hearing. We're going to end this once and for all. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Gabriel, Imani, and their legal team presented evidence. DNA proof that Carol was Hope's mother. Janet's criminal history. Timeline evidence showing Janet couldn't have been in Montana when Hope was abandoned. Testimony from everyone involved in the original case. The judge was clearly annoyed. Ms. Miller, you've wasted this court's time with baseless claims. You've harassed this family, made false accusations, and caused significant emotional distress. I'm granting the restraining order. You are to have no contact with the Thornton family. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. Janet tried to argue, but her new lawyer, a public defender who clearly didn't want to be there, advised her to stay quiet. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm referring this case to the DA's office for possible criminal charges. Making false claims about child custody is serious. You may face prosecution. After the hearing, Gabriel and Imani stood outside the courthouse with Angela. It's over, Angela said. She can't bother you anymore. What if she violates the restraining order? Imani asked. Then she goes to jail. And honestly, given what we know about her, she'll probably screw up soon and end up there anyway. Relief washed over Gabriel. Thank you. For everything. Just doing my job. Now go home to your family. They did. They went home, picked up Hope from Imani's mother who'd been watching her, and held her tight. The scary lady can't bother us anymore, Gabriel told Hope. Good. I didn't like her. Neither did we, baby. Neither did we. That night, after Hope was asleep and Imani was resting, Gabriel stood in Hope's doorway watching her sleep. So much had happened since he'd found her in the snow. So many challenges, so many moments of fear and doubt. But she was still here. Still his daughter. Still safe and loved. Imani appeared beside him, her hand finding his. We survived, she said. We did. Think anything else will try to break us? Probably. But we'll survive that too. They stood together, watching their daughter sleep, preparing for whatever came next. Because that's what families did. They faced challenges together, protected each other, survived and thrived despite everything. The shadows from the past had tried to destroy them. But love was stronger. Family was stronger. And the Thorntons would never stop fighting for each other. 3 months after the court case ended, Janet Miller was arrested for attempting another custody scam in Nevada. Gabriel read about it in the paper and felt only relief. She couldn't hurt them anymore. Imani's pregnancy progressed healthily once the stress lifted. Her blood pressure normalized. The baby grew strong. Hope talked to her little sister through Imani's belly, telling her about their family, about their home, about all the fun they'd have together. She'll like your toys? Hope asked. When she's big enough, yes. But for a while she'll just be a tiny baby who eats and sleeps. Like I was. Exactly like you were. Hope thought about this. And you and Dada saved me from the snow. It was the first time Hope had referenced her own beginning. Gabriel and Imani exchanged glances. They'd planned to tell Hope her story when she was older, but maybe she was ready now. Yes, Gabriel said. I found you in the snow and I brought you home and Mama helped make you strong. Because I was no one's child? Gabriel's breath caught. Who told you that? I heard you talking to Grandma. She said I had a note that said I was no one's child. They should have known Hope would overhear something eventually. She was smart, observant, always listening. Imani knelt down to Hope's level. You had a note that said that. But it was wrong. You were always someone's child. You were always supposed to be our child. My other mommy left me? Your birth mother was in a very hard situation. She couldn't take care of you, so she left you where someone would find you. Where your dada would find you. And now she's not my mommy anymore. You're my mommy. I am. And I always will be. Hope seemed satisfied with this explanation. She went back to playing, the conversation apparently over for her. But Gabriel and Imani knew they'd need to revisit this topic many times as Hope grew older, as she understood more, as she had questions. That went better than I expected, Imani said later. She's resilient. She'll be okay. We'll make sure she's okay. Imani went into labor on a Thursday morning. Hope was at preschool and Gabriel was working in his home office when Imani appeared in the doorway, breathing heavily. It's time. The drive to the hospital was surprisingly calm. Imani's labor progressed slowly, giving them time to call Hope's grandmother to pick her up from school, to settle into the hospital room to prepare. Gabriel held Imani's hand through contractions, coached her breathing, told her how strong she was. He'd been nervous about this, worried he wouldn't know how to support her, but instinct took over. He was just there, present and solid, exactly what she needed. You're doing amazing, he said. I'm doing okay. Amazing would be if this baby actually came out. He smiled. She'll come when she's ready. She's too much like Hope already. Stubborn. 8 hours later, their second daughter was born. Small and perfect, with a lusty cry that announced her arrival to the world. She's here, the doctor said, placing the baby on Imani's chest. Congratulations. Imani cried, holding their daughter close. Gabriel cried too, overwhelmed by the miracle of new life, by the perfection of this tiny person they'd created together. Hi baby girl, Imani whispered. We've been waiting for you. They named her Grace. Grace Imani Thornton. Because Grace was what had brought them together, what had sustained them through every challenge, what defined their family. Hope met her sister the next day. Gabriel's mother-in-law brought her to the hospital, and Hope approached the bed cautiously, curious about the small bundle in Imani's arms. This is Grace, Imani said. Your baby sister. She's tiny. You were this tiny once. Hope reached out carefully, touching Grace's hand. Grace's fingers curled around Hope's, and Hope's face lit up with wonder. She likes me. She loves you. You're her big sister. Hope took her role seriously from that moment on. She wanted to help with everything. Diaper changes, feedings, bath time. She sang to Grace, talked to her, showed her toys Grace was too young to appreciate. You're a good big sister, Gabriel told Hope. I have to be. Grace needs me. The first months with 2 children were chaotic. Sleepless nights, constant feedings, juggling 2 sets of needs. But Gabriel and Imani had learned to work as a team with Hope. They applied those lessons to Grace. They traded off night feedings. Supported each other through exhaustion. Found moments of connection even when overwhelmed. They'd built something strong enough to weather the storms of new parenthood. Hope's foundation continued growing. They'd helped over 100 families by Grace's first birthday. Each success story felt personal, each mother and child help felt like honoring Hope's beginning. Gabriel had stepped back almost completely from his business operations. He kept ownership and decision-making authority, but day-to-day management fell to others. His priority was his family and he never regretted that choice. Imani had returned to consulting work part-time, helping develop pediatric care programs nationwide. She worked from home, scheduling around the girls' needs, finding balance between career and motherhood. They were happy. Not perfectly, not without challenges, but genuinely, deeply happy. On Hope's 5th birthday, they held a party in the backyard. Friends from preschool, family, the people who'd supported them through everything. Hope wore a bright green dress and a crown, declaring herself princess for the day. Make a wish, Imani said as Hope prepared to blow out her candles. Hope closed her eyes tight, made her wish and blew. Then she looked at Gabriel and Imani. I wished for us to be together forever. Gabriel's throat tightened with emotion. That wish already came true, baby. We're a family. Forever. Promise. Promise. Later, after the party was cleaned up and both girls were asleep, Gabriel found Imani in the nursery watching Grace sleep. "You okay?" he asked. "Just thinking. 5 years ago you found hope in the snow. Our whole life started from that moment. Best moment of my life. Better than when we got married? Different. That was the best choice of my life. Finding hope was the best accident." Imani leaned into him. "I'm glad you took that back road. Glad you stopped. Glad you brought her home." "Me too. Though I didn't know I was bringing her home to you. That was the real gift." They stood together, watching their baby sleep, listening to Hope's soft breathing on the monitor. This was everything Gabriel had never thought he'd have. A wife he loved. Daughters he adored. A home full of warmth and laughter in life. 6 months later, Gabriel and Imani were at Hope's school for parent-teacher conferences. They sat in tiny chairs meant for 5-year-olds while Hope's teacher talked about her progress. "Hope is incredibly bright," the teacher said. "She's reading above grade level, her math skills are excellent. But what really stands out is her empathy. She's always the first to help other children, to notice when someone's upset. She has a big heart," Imani said. "She told me once that she was no one's child until you became her family. She said that's why she has to help people who need help. Because someone helped her." Gabriel and Imani both teared up. "She's special," the teacher continued. "You're doing something right." After the conference they walked to the car hand in hand. "We did good," Gabriel said. "We did. Both our girls are healthy and happy and loved. That's all that matters." "What about a third?" Imani stopped walking, turning to look at him. "A third child? Why not? We've got room. We've got love. Grace is almost 2. We could give them another sibling." "You really want that?" "I want everything with you. More kids, more chaos, more love. All of it." Imani smiled. "Let me think about it." 3 months later she had her answer. She was pregnant again. This time a boy. Hope and Grace were excited. "A brother," Hope said with authority. "We'll teach him everything." "He'll be lucky to have you two as big sisters," Gabriel said. Their son, James Gabriel Thornton, was born on a cold January morning. Hope was 6, Grace was 2.5. The family was complete. 5 children later would be too many, they decided. 3 was perfect. 3 kids to love, to raise, to watch grow. 3 chances to get it right. Gabriel's life had become everything he'd never imagined. He'd gone from a lonely billionaire obsessed with business to a father of 3, a husband devoted to his wife, a man who measured success in bedtime stories and scraped knees and laughter echoing through his home. The mansion that had once been cold and empty was now filled with toys and noise and life. Finger paintings covered the fridge. Crayon marks decorated walls. Chaos reigned and Gabriel loved every moment. 10 years after finding Hope in the snow, Gabriel stood in his backyard watching his family. Hope was 13 now, helping her younger siblings build a fort. Grace was 10, bossing everyone around with good-natured authority. James was 8, laughing at something Hope said. Imani appeared beside him, sliding her arm around his waist. "You look contemplative. Just thinking about how different my life is from what I expected." "Better or worse?" "Infinitely better. I thought success was money and power. Turns out it's this." He gestured to their children. "It's you. It's chaos and love and never knowing what's going to happen next." "Would you change anything?" "Not one single thing. Except maybe I would have taken that back road sooner. Found Hope sooner. Met you sooner. Everything happened exactly when it was supposed to. You weren't ready for us before that day." She was right. The man he'd been 10 years ago, driven and distant and convinced he didn't need anyone, he wouldn't have stopped for Hope. Wouldn't have opened his heart to Imani. Wouldn't have built this life. But he'd changed. Or maybe he'd become who he was always meant to be. Hope ran over, breathless and grinning. At 13, she was beautiful and confident. Everything you'd hope for in a teenage daughter. "Dad, can we have a bonfire tonight? Toast marshmallows?" "Sure. Go tell your brother and sister." Hope ran off and Gabriel watched her go. The baby he'd found in the snow. The child he'd saved. The daughter who'd saved him right back. "She's going to be okay," Imani said. "We worried so much about how being abandoned would affect her, but she's thriving. Because we gave her what she needed. Love, stability, truth. She knows her story and she's not ashamed of it." Hope had indeed learned her full story as she grew older. They told her about finding her in the snow, about Carol who had made an impossible choice, about Janet who tried to destroy their family. They'd shared everything age-appropriately, honestly. And Hope had taken it all in stride. She'd started volunteering with Hope's foundation, helping other kids who'd come from hard beginnings. She talked openly about being adopted, about her unique family. "I'm lucky," she'd said once. "I got to be wanted. Some kids are born into families that want them. I was chosen. That's special." That night they had their bonfire. All 5 of them sat around the fire, toasting marshmallows, telling stories, laughing. Grace got marshmallow all over her face. James set his on fire and had to blow it out. Hope helped the younger ones make s'mores. "This is perfect," Grace declared. "What is?" Imani asked. "Us. Our family. Everything." "It is pretty perfect," James agreed. Hope looked at Gabriel and Imani. "Thank you." "For what?" Gabriel asked. "For finding me. For being my parents. For making our family." Gabriel couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. Imani reached for his hand, squeezing tight. "Thank you for being our daughter," Imani said. "For making us a family." They sat together as the fire burned down and stars came out. A family built from impossible odds, from a choice to stop on a snowy road, from love that overcame every obstacle. Gabriel had spent his early life believing he was unlovable, unwanted, destined to be alone. He'd built walls and made money and convinced himself that was enough. Then he'd found hope. And through hope he'd found Imani. And through both of them he'd found himself. The version of himself he was always meant to be. Later, after the kids were in bed and he and Imani were getting ready for sleep, Gabriel pulled her close. "I love you," he said. "More than I ever thought I could love anyone. I love you too. You gave me everything I ever wanted. A family, children, a purpose. You gave me more. You gave me hope when I had none. You showed me what family could be." They kissed, soft and sweet, a kiss that held 10 years of love and partnership and shared joy. "Forever," Imani whispered. "Forever," Gabriel agreed. And it was. Forever started the day he found hope in the snow. Forever continued through every challenge, every triumph, every ordinary day. Forever was this moment, this life, this family. Gabriel Thornton had once been a billionaire with everything money could buy but nothing that mattered. Now he was a husband, a father, a man who knew what truly mattered. Well, family. Showing up for the people who needed you. He'd found hope in the snow with a note saying she was no one's child. But she'd never been no one's child. She'd always been his child. She'd always been meant for this family. And they'd all been saved. Not just Hope but Gabriel and Imani too. Saved by each other. Saved by love. Saved by the choice to stop, to help, to open their hearts. Forever had started. And it would never end.